the American people fit to govern themselves, to rule themselves, to control them? I believe they are.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. There is the love of God. And if you have any doubt concerning the love of God, look at the cross.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
We establish no religion in this country, nor will we ever. We command no worship. We mandate no belief. But we poison our society when we remove its theological underpinnings. We court corruption when we leave it bereft of belief.
And welcome into another edition of American Heritage Live. I'm your host, Jeff DeShazo, along with co-host Ron Meyer to my right, and to the left, the man in black, the inimitable and always faithful Daniel Connor. Where's the wave, Daniel? I don't get the wave. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, the salutatory wave of the left hand up in the air, approximately 45 degrees. Well, folks, welcome into another edition on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Hope you're doing well out and about, going here and yon. We want to always thank our sponsors who make the show possible, and they are Jeff DeShazo, Keller Williams Realty with Hoover, that's me on The Voice, Jim King of Hedges and Highways Ministry, and Brad Phillips with Homewood Auto Body Specialist. Right away, we are going to tell you who we have as guests on the show. This is a power-packed show, so go ahead and get folks listening. You can stream the show at 97.7 The Peach, and look for there. If it's not working, just Google 977 The Peach Stream. You can get that. And also check out our archives at facebook.com/American Heritage Live. Check the YouTube archives there. But today, following the, I thought, very interesting Republican debate this past week, I thought it was a blockbuster. We'll be having Marty Connors. Marty is the president of the Birmingham International Center, does a great job, and he's also the former chairman for the GOP for the state of Alabama, and he's a political analyst for our show. He'll be on the first half of the show. The second half, we'll be having Professor of Communication Studies at UAB and expert of political communications. That is Dr. Larry Powell. And always love to have him on the show as well. But first, what we want to do is have Ron give an update. He's got an update for us, a little quick headline. Ron, take it away.
Well, yeah, Jeff, it's not an update, but it's just a commentary on something that took place. If you remember... President Obama made a speech a couple of weeks ago now. In that speech, he accused anyone in the Congress that disagrees with this Iran deal, which more people are, by the way. He likened them to the hardliners in Iran, and that was an absolute disgrace, Jeff. You know,
yeah, I saw that.
I heard the Senate leader in the Defense Committee, I guess it was, and he was just he was very even keel, but he came out and just commented on the president's comment. It was so uncalled for, so hurtful. He's becoming known as the great divider in this country, and not just in politics, but in all areas. It's sad. Yeah,
I thought that was good, Ron. Very excellent comment there, and I did see that.
You did.
By the way, it doesn't surprise me. Unfortunately, we've come to expect that. I think this you got a lame duck president. He just doesn't care anymore, and he's willing to do whatever. All right, now, what we want to do, folks, is give an update on what's happening in the political scene that we're following. As you know on the show, those who are listening regularly, we have a candidate we've been keeping an eye on. That's the Senator Morris Winkman, the very senior Senator Morris Winkman up north, and he has a vice presidential candidate. He is known as Horace Blinkman. Yes, Horace Blinkman. And so we're going to go out now to Horace Blinkman and get an update. Horace, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Jeff. How are you?
I'm fine. Your voice has changed, I understand. Now, tell us what's happening. I understand you've been tapped to fill the vice presidential spot. How did that come about?
I've been tipped to what?
not tipped, tapped. Tap, sir. Turn your hearing aid up. Tap to take the vice presidential slot.
Oh, yes. Well, Winkman's got a good sense of humor, and I think I can fill this spot pretty good. You know what I'm saying? By the way, I wanted to thank you. I haven't been in Atlanta for, maybe 30 years.
We're doing the show from Birmingham, but that's fine. Did you take your meds there, Horace? Back to another question.
Did you say my peds?
No,
Jeff?
Morris. No, excuse me, Mr. Blinkman. I don't care what your name is. Horace Blinkman, the candidate for the vice pres. Let me ask you, why do you think that Morris tapped you to join his ticket?
He's been having some psychological problems, Jeff, over these last 30 years.
Oh, come now.
It's a good question. I haven't got the foggiest idea, to be honest with you. But I'll say this much. He's got good taste.
He's got good taste? Well, I'll tell you what, that's all the time we have for you, Horace.
Wait a minute.
We'll be checking back.
This
We've got to
is
get
it?
to our... That's it for you, for sure, for now.
I'm not done yet.
Yeah, we want to, before we go into the break, what we want to do is go ahead and bring in our political analyst for the first half of the show, and that is Marty Connors. Marty, as I mentioned before, during the break, he is the president of the Birmingham International Center, does a great job, and former chairman for the GOP for the state of Alabama, and we always love having him in. Now, Marty, welcome into the show.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction. My next goal is just to be a greeter at Walmart.
Well, it might be a lot more interesting than what you've been doing, actually. Some of the stores. Well, let's get right to it. We're going to have a short segment on the first side, Marty, and then a longer on the second after the break. But I know you watched the Republican debate, if you want to call it a debate. I don't think it was a true format for that. Let's start right out and break it up. Of course, your primaries and secondaries, but I'm going to go with the first question. You're going to be asked repeatedly, winners and losers, if you want to start with that.
Okay, well, I would say if you base it on just polling after Trump is still maintaining the lead, Cruz has moved forward, and both of them have basically the same message. That is sort of populism and sort of the general frustration amongst Republicans with the Republican establishment. By the way, Cruz was in Pelham yesterday. I was over there seeing him.
Did you? Yeah.
So that I would count them as winning. I would say Bush and Walker did what they needed to do, and so for that reason they got through it the first battle, and both of them are going to have the money to have a ground game in Iowa. Carly Fiorina really jumped out of the pack, and
yes,
I think
she did.
She's going to be a top tier. Yeah, and I mean, you've got that other element that adds a woman's face to the whole mix. That's fantastic. Rubio, I think, overall had the best performance, the next generation message, all of that. Then you've got, Huckabee and Santorum. I don't think Santorum's going to make the cut this time. I think Huckabee might because of the SEC primary, or as they often refer to now as the Waffle House primary, which is going to happen on August the 1st. And then to finish out, Kasich, all Kasich has to do is just continue to remind people he's from Ohio. Because there's been no Republican president. Hello, what do you think about foreign policy? Well, I'm from Ohio.
Right.
I mean, because there is no Republican president that's ever won the presidency without Ohio.
Without Ohio.
And I will close out and say Ben Carson is a great winner, deeply, deeply beloved. The question is, can he purchase the infrastructure in Iowa and New Hampshire?
Well, here's the thing. Let's. I've got a quick follow up, and then Ron has a question for you. Ben Carson. A lot of people wrote him off early. I didn't agree with that. I think they thought he wouldn't make. Now he was understated and was in the back of the pack during the this past week. I thought he landed well. Did the gymnast land well? What do you call it? He stuck it, so to speak, at the end.
Yeah,
However, I think people have underestimated his connection with grassroots folks, and I think he's going to continue to surprise. That's my take, but I want to hear your take on him.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but I have been to Iowa 3 times, for at least a month in the primaries. I've been to New Hampshire twice for primaries, and I've been to South Carolina twice for primaries. I can tell you that regardless of your popularity, let's say Trump, for example, who's on top right now.
Of course.
At some point, you have to have somebody drive the truck to get you to go to the caucus. And to put all this into perspective, and I'm going to rant a little bit.
That's okay.
Maybe in the second segment, because I know you've got short time now.
Right.
But I just want to put Iowa into perspective for your listeners. 3 years ago, when they had the caucus in Iowa, almost 4 years, 122,000 people voted in the Iowa caucus. That's it. And Iowa is worth 30 delegates. There are more people that will tailgate in the Alabama and Auburn game than will vote at the Iowa caucus. Okay, yet you got to get them out. Okay, same thing applies with New Hampshire. 250,000 people voted in New Hampshire last time. They're worth 23 delegates, and here's the shock value of it all. Iowa and New Hampshire combined offer only 3 more delegates to the Republican convention than the state of Alabama. Yeah. So, but look at the impact they have.
Well, look, let's do this. Let's grab Ron's question before the break, and it'll have to be quick, and then we'll continue it after the break. Go ahead, Ron.
Break is going to be quick. Marty, Donald Trump came off very tough in that debate. A lot of flack all around the country. How does he maintain that 23% lead?
One word, anger. The public is so outraged over this that they want somebody to be brutally blunt, or at least 23% did, brutally blunt, even to the point where they will take the risk, knowing that Trump has been on virtually every side of every issue. Okay, but right now, when Mitch McConnell and John Boehner are not delivering, I think they're looking for a shock value, and I think that's what's happening right now. It doesn't mean it's going to get to 50%, but that's what's happening. Anger.
Yeah, let's do that. I want to talk a little bit more about Trump after the break. I know there's a lot of other candidates, and we'll get to them, but you do have to reconcile the Trump factor. All right, you're listening to the voice of Marty Connors. He's our political analyst for the first half of the show here on American Heritage Live. Don't go away and tell your friends. Thanks. Hi, everybody. This is Jeff DeShazo, host of American Heritage Live. I'd like to tell you about my real estate business with Keller Williams Realty. For the past 17 years, I have been serving the greater Birmingham area. When it comes to life's experiences, few areas give more satisfaction than owning your own home. This is a part of the American dream. Perhaps you own a home and would like a free comparative market analysis before you list it to sell. Or you may need to downsize, or need a larger home. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or considering buying a second home for your family vacations, whatever your needs are, I invite you to call me today at 205-223-7653, or you can visit my website at jeffdeshazo.com. That's Jeff, DESHAZO.com, and there you can request free listing alerts for any houses you like to be sent to you. I'd also like to send you my free mobile phone app for your smartphone, where you can search for houses over your phone. Please call me today at 205-223-SOLD. That's 205-223-7653. 223-7653. And together, we'll make real estate your estate. And welcome back into American Heritage Live. I'm your host, Jeff DeShazo, along with Ron Meyer, Daniel Connor, and our political analyst for the first half of the show, and that is Marty Connors, a favorite because of his Irish humor. Always there. He brings it to the table, and don't let the humor fool you, ladies and gentlemen. The man's got his chops, and he's paid his dues. Now, let's go back, Marty, to we were talking about the Trump factor, and Ron's got a follow-up question for you on Trump.
Yeah, Marty, I don't know what the percentage was for Ted Cruz after that first debate, But that's sort of the same type of vote that Trump is pulling. So that
Exactly.
anger that you're sharing is more than even 23%, right?
Yes, that's true. But I do think at some point, like if you are looking for that anti-establishment Washington type, I mean, who better to prove that than Cruz? I mean, he's the one who's been called out by other senators for pointing out hypocrisy. So I think when it's all said and done, that vote would more likely shift to Cruz. I look at Trump sort of, and by the way, I enjoy everything he's doing, but I look at him as sort of the defibrillator of this year's campaign.
Well said. I like that.
Yeah, but think of it like this. It's still very, very early, but, like, if you're trying to cross, northern Alaska or somewhere in the Antarctic, you need an icebreaker ship to go before the tanker. The real meat and potatoes are in the tanker, but you have to have the icebreaker. Donald Trump is the icebreaker. That's the way I look at it. Gets it on the table, perhaps crudely, but he gets it on the table.
What I find amazing right now, Marty, is you have Bernie Sanders drawing tremendous crowds on the one side, and you have Trump on the other side. And I'm wondering who the middle guy is going to, and what is that middle position going to look like? What candidate's going to slip in there? Was it going to be Bush, Rubio, or Kasich?
My guess, you're asking me to, going back to Irish heritage, we're talking horse racing now, so you're asking me to box a trifecta. And so if I had to do a trifecta, I would probably have Rubio in that box somewhere, And the other thing, guys, you need to think about, and voters need to think about, is when you're voting March the 1st for this, whoever it is, remember that ultimately what Alabama wants, who Alabama's for, doesn't really matter in the general election. It's already decided here. But what candidate will win or could win Nevada, Colorado, Iowa, Wisconsin, Ohio, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Virginia, or Florida? That is the candidate, in my view, so long as he's conservative.
Yeah, I think the two heavyweights coming out with substance, if you want to use the word substance, and you'd say the tanker that had the goods was Marco Rubio, hands down. And I think Cruz did. The ones that did well, Cruz, I thought Walker handled himself well.
Yeah, Walker did very well.
Just solid. I don't think he swayed one way or the other. I don't think Bush swayed one way or the other. He was like maintenance.
But they didn't lose ground.
Exactly.
I think that's the key for them.
Yeah, they didn't lose ground.
If I were forced to vote today, and I'm just saying if I was forced to, I'd probably lean either Rubio or Walker because of Electoral College, if for nothing else. Okay? But Walker, and I really like the guy's track record, but he's I've tried to describe him for your older listeners as the Tom Landry of 2016. One of the best coaches of all time, mild-mannered, never gets ruffled, but just not necessarily made for TV.
Yeah, he's a winner, though. I mean, he's a proven winner.
He's a winner, yeah. He's a winner. And so, that's the key with that. One other thing I wanted to say about Trump that's very important. He knows, and everyone in America knows, that if he chooses to run independent, he's basically given the country over to Hillary Clinton or the Democratic nominee. And so anybody who's threatening that, I can't support until they stop saying that.
Well, yeah, it was. That blew my mind that he said that. So
well, obviously it makes him look independent. It makes him look, center stage and all of that. But when it gets down to the lick log, like Romney, I want to congratulate them on the Iranian nuclear deal.
Exactly.
Good point.
Exactly. So, that's right. Those who defaulted, and advocates it take the time to vote. And I could preach on that. That is absolutely true.
Marty.
Speaking again of Bernie Sanders, this was pretty funny yesterday. Ted Cruz gets up to a crowd, I don't know, 500-600 in Pelham, and he said, just look at our side. We've got 17 qualified, really good candidates, X number of governors, senators, entrepreneurs, and so on. And he said, no, look at the other side. Here you've got a self-avowed, publicly admitting socialist. And then he's putting the country and the world, this socialist putting the country and the world in jeopardy And then on top of it, you've got Bernie Sanders.
Well, at least he comes out and you know where he stands, you know.
Yeah, I respect Bernie for that.
I got a quick observation here, Marty. I'm excited to ask you this, but Marco Rubio, when I first saw him speaking, he was on, I think he was being interviewed by Charlie Rose that time. During the course of the interview, I was much impressed with his handle on the issues. His demeanor, I thought, was terrific. And he even got to a place where he was joking around with Rose. He was really loose. And I thought about it. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me, now don't laugh, he reminds me of a Republican conservative John F. Kennedy. He's got that kind of charisma.
I knew you were going to say that.
Did you know that? How did you know that?
I just knew it because first of all, you warned me that I might not like what you're going to say, so I knew where you had to be going. Okay. But look, y'all, and I'm not trying to be surface or anything here. I'm not trying to be shallow, but yeah, Rubio does have a command of the issues. I agree with that. But on top of it, you know, we can't be blamed for being anti-Hispanic anymore if we nominate one.
No.
You know, I mean, you know, and he also, I think the best line of the night among many was, you know, he is the face of the new generation. And, you know, I think if he were to get elected, I think he'd be nominated. I think he'd be one heck of a general election candidate. Mm-hmm. And he carries with him probably Florida. And so if you had a Rubio Walker ticket, and I like the budget chairman Kasich much more than I like the governor Kasich. Mm-hmm. But, you know, you throw in an Ohio player or a Wisconsin player and a Florida player, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, I'm surprised by Kasich's volunteering where he stands, becoming kind of a generalist there. I agree with you. He was much more conservative when he served on the committee than as a governor. I'm not sure why, but, you know, hey, I'm not casting stones or aspersions. Let me make a comment on Rand Paul. Rand Paul appeared very small and petulant, defensive. It did not show well, I thought. Time will iron that out. I think he's got time to turn that around. Quick observation on Trump. The day after the campaign, well, you might have mentioned this, but the day after the debate, he fires his campaign manager.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, he fires everybody.
Well, yeah, but that's his style. You're fired.
Well, I mean, it is. But then again, I can't blame him for firing people or a campaign man. I mean, heck, Carly Fiorina fired 11,000.
Oh, that was low. That was low.
No, I say that complimentary. I mean, I want a president who fires 11,000 Washington bureaucrats.
That's different, though. They were from Hewlett Packard that she fired.
Well, I understand. Still, I mean, the point is they were obviously bloated.
Yes.
And so she trimmed it back, and so I'd like to see that kind of attitude in D.C.
Let me interject. I think Carly Fiorina is good for the party. I think she is a welcome addition, and everybody ought to keep their eye on her. I don't think she ought to be written off so fast like others think. I thought she delivered the goods and won her round on the secondaries.
I think she would have. I think she would have finished in the top 2 or 3.
Oh yeah,
or 4, if she was in the later debate. You know, so. Yeah, I've got my eyes on her as well. I'm going to be watching that real close.
Do you not think that she'll slip into the top tier?
Oh, no doubt. Top 5 or 6, I think for sure.
Yeah, and I mean that'll be good. I think the Republicans need to see a woman in the mix to offset the Hillary factor. And by the way, I think blood's in the water for Hillary.
Well, you know, yes and no. This election is going to be, I think. Everybody says this is the most important election ever. I thought the Romney-Obama one was probably the most telling because Romney said it right. 47% of Americans pay no federal income tax. Okay? You got 46 million on welfare and food stamps. Largest, almost a doubling of disability. The I Want My Stuff coalition is probably right at 50%. So I think Democrats will tolerate one heck of a lot of corruption just to make certain they keep their stuff. And so the real question to me is, have we reached the tipping point as a country? Well, and I think we're dangerously close.
Marty, the figure that Chris Christie threw out was that 71% of the budget goes to entitlement programs. That's incredible.
Debt, yes.
That's incredible. Where do you start? I mean, And you're right. If people start talking about trimming back or getting into this thing, they're not going to get elected if 71% of the people are collecting. Am I right?
That's one heck of a constituency. That's my point.
Yeah.
And when you try to tinker around the edges with something like Medicaid or Medicare, for example, as Paul Ryan did, that's when you see the grandma in the wheelchair getting pushed off the cliff commercial. Yeah. So the I Want My Stuff coalition is big, and it may be at 50%. All the more reason, I think, to have more females involved, more brown people involved in our party. I tell you what, I'm really proud of this. Look, I was just looking at this the other day, sort of laughing. Okay, now remember, we're the party that dislikes everybody. Okay, we just don't like women, we don't like minorities. We got one black, two Hispanics, a fluent speaking governor who's married to a Hispanic, one Indian, one woman, a preacher, and a couple of Catholics. No, my goodness, can we get any more diverse?
Yeah, that's excellent, Marty. And unfortunately, the music's telling us we got to go. As always, golden. Okay. Marty, always golden. Marty Connors, ladies and gentlemen. And tell the folks again, Marty, how they can follow you.
Facebook's probably the best way to do it. Just friend me on Facebook, MartyConnors.
And don't look for you at Walmart's.
Thank you much,
Give me
Marty.
another couple of years. Give me another couple of years. I'll be there.
All right, buddy. Take care. We'll be back to Marty Connors from time to time. He's one of our favorites. We'll be right back after the break. Ladies and gentlemen, with Dr. Larry Powell, Professor of Communication Studies at UAB. Don't go away.
Hi, this is David Barton. You're listening to American Heritage Live with Jeff DeShazo and Ron Meyer.
Friends, have you been in a car accident recently and need to get some body work done, or do you need a new paint job for that favorite car? Then write this down. Homewood Auto Body Specialists. That's where you need to go. They are locally owned and have been in business for over 23 years. Brad Phillips is the owner and Hubert Underwood is the manager. Most of the staff have been with Brad for over 20 years. Homewood Auto Body Specialists are located at 96 Robert Jemison Road in Homewood. A member of the Better Business Bureau, they service foreign and domestic cars and are ICAR and ASE certified. And yes, they'll provide free estimates. Their equipment is state-of-the-art to handle all of your collision-related work, and the staff trains constantly to stay up to date with all the latest techniques. All services are guaranteed as long as you own your car. They are a direct repair facility and do business with most all insurance companies. They are open Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Call them today at 205-941-2410. 205-941-2410. That's Homewood Auto Body Specialists.
The power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings.
And welcome back into American Heritage Live. I'm your host, Jeff DeShazo, along with co-host Ron Meyer, producer Daniel Connor. Well, for the second half of the show, following the Republican debate last week, we certainly want to have in Dr. Larry Powell. He's a professor of communication studies, an expert on political communications at UAB. The man knows everything, political ads, polling. There's nothing he's not aware of or does not have his finger on the pulse. He's written many books. He is considered one of the top 100 researchers by the Association of Communication Administrators in the nation. Dr. Larry, welcome back in to American Heritage Live.
Oh, my pleasure. Good to be here talking to you again.
Well, as always, love to have you. Great to have you. You help keep us in the middle and off the rocks, and we want to go right away to the follow-up to the debate last week. I kind of want to throw the questions out, and you can shake it out however you will. The winners and losers, you thought?
Well, it was a lot of fun, and the loser's real easy to identify. That was a guy named Donald Trump.
All right, tell us why.
He got badgered the whole night. He complained about unfair questions, but the questioners were pretty tough on everybody, and he just didn't know how to handle them. He wasn't prepared. And when you're running for president, I mean, you're in the major leagues. You're supposed to be ready for that, and he wasn't. He's relying still on his kind of a blustering rhetoric in order to get support, and he's still getting it, but he's not going to get much more.
Yeah, I thought it seemed to be
down from here.
I'm sorry, Larry. Say again. I interrupted you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think he's probably headed down from here. He's probably peaked, and that was probably his high point Thursday night, and he just didn't do well. And there's no way that you can put a positive face on it. He was performed very poorly.
Yeah, it seemed a lot of animus and very thin. And once he started being redundant, and the Sharks came after him, I thought he just seemed petulant. And as you say, I thought you said it very well, unprepared. I thought it was interesting to note. And then Ron has a question. It was interesting to note he fired his campaign manager the next day.
It's also interesting to note that campaign manager says he quit. When you can't even agree on that, that's a bad sign.
Bad sign. All right, Ron, you've got a question.
Yes. Hi, how are you been?
Doing good, Ron. Nice to talk to you.
It's good to hear your voice. I have one question here that I want to throw out to you, because I don't know if it was really addressed at the debate. I didn't have the chance to hear the debate, but the question is this. We have the worst economic recovery since World War II. During Reagan's recovery growth, it was 6% and then 9%, right? Hundreds of thousands of jobs are created during that time. There was up to 1 million jobs, actually. And was this issue ever raised about in that debate as to where we're at? I think the growth is, 2% with this president's economic program?
It was raised, and raised specifically directed toward Jeb Bush.
Mm-hmm.
And he responded by reiterating his pledge to get economic growth up to 4% if he's president. A couple of other people hit on it. It didn't resonate very well. And I think there are two reasons for that. One is that Donald Trump was sucking up all the oxygen in the room.
Oh, he was.
And it made it hard for anything else to become noteworthy. Even some of the others made mistakes, but their mistakes were so minor compared to his that they kind of got glossed over. It's not a major issue for Republican voters right now. That's the second reason. Even though that's what the Republican Party would like to be the basis of the campaign, Republican voters right now seem to be more interested in social issues than in economic issues.
Larry, there's obviously a lot of anger out there. People are frustrated, turning to Trump right now. How about on the Democratic side with that anger issue? Doesn't that exist?
Oh, it exists. It definitely exists. That's why Joe Biden's taking a second hard look at the campaign. There are people out there trying to get him to enter it because they, one, don't think Hillary can win it, and two, she's not campaigning very well, even if she can win it. And they're disappointed in that. Although, quite frankly, the best thing that's happened for the Democrats last night was the debate Thursday night.
Yeah.
It highlighted issues that Republicans don't do a good job of. I mean, all we've been talking about since is Republicans' attitude toward women. And that's going to be something the Democrats are going to just sit back and let happen.
Yeah, I think it's... I think Republicans have had a problem, Larry, with allowing the other party, the Democratic Party, to paint the rules for them. In other words, put the line in the sand, and it seems like the Republicans take the bait every time, and that's a prime example.
Yes, and you are correct. The Democrats have been setting the rules, and they've been setting rules that allows them to win, and it sure looked like it was happening again Thursday night.
Yeah, it's a shame that this party has been manipulated so and is not seeing it. They just can't seem, or we may see a little shift, and I think with the advent of social media, them becoming more ramped up on that, maybe they'll start to get a clue and be more proactive rather than reactive. Shifting gears now. I'm going to throw out two names that I thought really stood well. I think that stood out to me, and that was Rubio and Cruz in particular. And I think it's interesting to note, and it hit me within 24 hours of the debate, both of those are minority names, both of them. And those were the two strongest names. And I say that only because that could be very attractive for the Republican Party long term. But your thoughts on those two?
I thought Marco Rubio did the best job of anybody there. I agree with you on that one. And I thought he was a little nervous on the first question. But after that, he seemed to be finding his footing. He was very articulate. He not only answered the questions, he answered them intelligently and gave real solid responses that the other candidates can look to and get some information from. Cruz wasn't quite as high on as you are, but he did very well. The way he did it, though, was that he simply took whatever question was asked and turned it into the question he wanted, and then answered that question very well. So he ducked a couple of issues.
I actually left out two. I'm sorry, Ron, real quick. I left out two. I actually had top four that I wanted to mention, and Rubio and Cruz, I couldn't seem to be the only two I could get out of my mouth, but Huckabee and Walker were other two that I thought did quite well. Yeah, Walker was more in the background, but I thought I didn't see a lot of imploding except for Trump, but those two I thought did quite well as well.
The Huckabee, I thought also started poorly, but I thought he ended on an extremely high note. And the way you finish in a debate like that is sometimes more important than anything else. So I agree with you on that. I'm still not convinced that he is the candidate for this go-around. You know, I think he probably should have run 4 years ago. And I don't know how much credibility he's going to get. Walker did okay. He did not do as well as I expected him to do. And he got stumped on one question, on the abortion question. And he didn't even know exactly how to answer, what do you do in the case of the mother's life being in danger?
Right.
And I don't know how that affects him in the Republican primary. It's like a big opening if he were to get the nomination, and the Democrats would beat him over the head with that. It probably doesn't hurt him badly within the Republican Party that he couldn't come up with an answer, because there are a lot of people in the Republican Party who can't come up with an answer on that one.
Well, with that, let's take a break, Larry. You're listening to the voice of Dr. Larry Powell, professor of communication studies and expert on political communications, and our show's political analyst here on the second half of the show on American Heritage Live. We'll be back after the break.
Hi, this is Harry Reeder, Senior Pastor of Briarwood Presbyterian Church in Birmingham, and you're listening to American Heritage Live with Jeff DeShazo and Ron Meyer.
Jim King is a concerned American and one of our sponsors and friends here on American Heritage Live. Jim is on the board of the Hedges and Highways Prison Ministry. They provide adults and teens leaving prison with assistance in these areas: counseling, support groups, assistance in finding housing and employment, food and clothing and education. Right now, they're raising funds for gift bags, which includes items not provided in prisons. These items include toothpaste, washcloth, shaving cream, soap, and shampoo. It is amazing how many are in prison without any connection to family or friends. These gift bags will lift their spirits and allow them to feel support from a ministry that will help them once they get out. Hedges and Highways is a 501c3 organization, so all contributions are tax deductible. At the moment, their goal is to raise $20,000 for the gift bags, and they need your help. Please make checks payable to Hedges and Highways Prison Ministry, P.O. Box 112075, Birmingham, Alabama 35211. Or call Director Lois Gardner for more information. That number is 205-516-5634. 205-516-5634. Please call them today. American Heritage Live. I'm your host, Jeff DeShazo, along with Ron Meyer and producer Daniel Conard. And our guest for the second half of the show is Dr. Larry Powell. And Larry, we were talking before the break, and we had to take a break a little bit fast there. Ron has a follow-up question for you, Ron.
Larry, okay. Yeah, hi. I had mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I'm not promoting him, but there's something that really caught my attention with Rubio, and I wanted to get your input on this as well. I heard him, as I had said previously, being interviewed by Charlie Rose, and then somebody else had interviewed him on another occasion, and I watched that interview. Both interviews he came off very well polished, knowledgeable, great sense of humor, reminded me of a young John Kennedy, a Republican conservative John Kennedy. I think, at least this is me now, and I wanted to get your input on this. I think he's the type of person that could catch the imagination of not only the young people. Well, if he stirs up the young people, he could stir up probably a lot of older folks as well. What do you think?
I'm very impressed with him, and I agree with you. I think he's going to be one of the final three candidates in this. I think he has that potential anyway. I mean, we're going to have to knock it down from 17 to something. Mm-hmm. And I think it gets down to 3 or 4, and I expect him to be among the finalists doing that. He's extremely bright. He is young, but he's, as you say, a Republican Kennedy is a very good description of him, and he has that appeal. And perhaps one of the strongest things about him is that he provides a contrast against Hillary Clinton better than anybody else on that stage, or any of the Republican candidates who were not on that stage. He really is a politician of the future, and I think that has a great deal going for him. His only problem that I'm aware of is that his net worth is relatively low, which doesn't bother me as a voter at all. I mean, I like somebody whose net worth's down there with me.
Yeah.
But he, to compete in those levels, he's going to be one of those candidates who's going to have one rich guy who's giving him a lot of support, and somebody's going to call him to task on that at some point, and he's going to have to be prepared to handle that.
The one name we haven't heard much of after that debate is Chris Christie. Do you have any take on him right now?
Chris Christie he didn't do well in the Monday night forum at all, mainly because the questions were bad. They asked everybody different questions, and he got asked boring questions that he couldn't expand on and say anything about his message. It was almost the same thing Thursday night. The questions were not as bad, but it was harder for him to make his points and get it across. And so you've got 2 times in a row where he's been at best treading water. It's mighty early in the campaign to say that the campaign is passing somebody by, but it's getting real close to that on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the interchange between he and Rand Paul was interesting. Both gave what they got, but I just It seemed to me Rand Paul came
one
across...
benefited from it.
Yeah, I think so. Rand Paul to me seemed small and petulant and just couldn't seem to get his footing back and just disappeared kind of after that in that particular... And by the way, Larry, that to me is not a true debate anyway. It's basically a forum panel, but in the traditional sense, it's not a debate at all unless you get an interaction between the candidates, and it was staged. It was just direct questions, and you're at the mercy of the questions.
Yeah, and I totally agree. It was not a debate. It came closer than the forum on Monday night.
Right.
But it is still a long way from being a real debate. And there was very, very little exchanges between candidates, except those that were forced by somebody butting in, and those didn't come off well. There were very little discussion of any issues beyond the canned statements that the candidates made.
Generally agreed that Ben Carson started out slow, but ended well. Your thoughts on how he did Thursday night?
I think he's probably the smartest person on stage. And I was impressed with his intellect. I was not yet convinced that he's got the background to be president. I do think he's got the background to make a major contribution to government. And he may have it eventually get that background to be president himself. But if I were a presidential candidate and I get the nomination and I'm looking for help from somebody, he'd be one of the first people I'd go to.
I've got a follow-up question, then Ron is going to pipe in. Would he be tapped as a VP choice or just merely some sort of consultant for president? What's your thought?
I do not think he will be the VP choice, but I do think the vice presidential choice was on the stage and that his name was John Kasich. The Republicans badly need Ohio, and Kasich can deliver that for them if he's on the ticket. And assuming that Kasich does not get the nomination himself, a smart candidate will pick him. I do think that Carson would be a very viable person in the cabinet somewhere.
Interesting. Interesting. Ron?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Kasich. There was a couple of things that sort of caught my attention looking at this the day after. I didn't see the actual debate, but reading some of the accounts and hearing some of them outside of that debate night. Kasich and Rubio, I haven't heard much from Ben Carson, but the two of them seem to be, I think, the type of people that can work well with the other party, and they seem to be, I think they have that Jack Kemp type approach to life. I'm thinking of Kasich now. The compassionate conservative label I think he used to have on there. What is your take on that?
I would agree with you. I think the compassionate conservative label is overused, but it's highly accurate on Kasich. And he is the type of candidate, if he could get the nomination, he would be a superb presidential candidate.
Yeah, I agree.
I just don't know that he can get the nomination. He's probably too moderate for the Republican primary process right now. But he's surprised people before, and he could certainly surprise me again. And if he was to get it, he'd be a viable candidate who could be highly competitive against anybody that the Democrats put up.
All right, let's shift gears, Larry. Carly Fiorina. It's heard that she did, quite well, was seen to do quite well, and won her round on the second tier. I want to hear your thoughts on her as a potential rising player in the first tier, and how soon that'll take place, maybe.
The Republicans would really like for her to be on stage for the second debate. She still hasn't impressed me. I didn't see the first round, so I'm only taking people's word that she won it. I mean, ultimately, she got fired from her job, and that's why she's available to run. And that's not a record that you can run on very well. The Democrats would love for her to be the nominee.
Yeah. There's pros and cons for every candidate, and everyone has baggage, and some has more. I liken that to Trump. I thought a fatal blow, whether he can recover or not. And he's a comeback kid. Many times in business, he has come back. People wrote him off. But the bankruptcies that came out when he had that bullseye put on his chest, well, you're going to advise us, and you faced all these bankruptcies, and then he responded, well, you know, I just play by the same rules that every businessman does. The leaders of it, and it was a lame response.
Oh yeah,
but your thought,
lame.
Yeah,
and if you know, that was a prelude to what he would get if he were to be the Republican nominee, and it wouldn't be pretty after that. I mean, he'd be bloodied by the time the election was over. And I think Fiorino's in the same situation, not as badly as Trump now by any means, but I don't think is a winner for the party right now.
I was going to ask you about this third party stuff with Trump. I mean, that's a real possibility for him to do that, don't you think?
I have no doubts that he's going to leave that option open, and I have no doubts that he would really like to do it. If he does it, you can forget about the Republican winning next year. The Democrats are going to be in good shape. I don't know that he can do it, though. I mean, the guy's rich but lazy. And to get on the third ballot as a third ballot candidate in most states, you have to come up with a bunch of signatures on petitions. And I don't know that he's got the ability to organize. He's got the ability to speak on TV, but I don't know that he's got the ability to organize on a state-by-state basis well enough to actually mount a third-party campaign.
Good point.
Let me ask you this, Larry. Let's put yourself in the shoes of the Democratic movers and shakers. You're watching Thursday night, and you're kind of listening, observing. What's going through their minds right now as response to Thursday night?
Oh, this was wonderful. They laughed through the entire experience, I'm sure. They thought it was a prime example of Republicans shooting each other, although most of it came from the questioners, not from the other candidates. And they just loved the fact that Donald Trump dominated. Now, it's too early for them to be happy about it, but they were happy about it.
All right, let's take some of the names out. And Marco Rubio is becoming a favorite. What's going through the minds of the Democrats with Marco Rubio if he starts getting higher numbers?
Marco Rubio could win. And they're not convinced that he's going to get the nomination yet, but they would be impressed with his responses. He's obviously an intelligent guy. He is obviously a young guy, and he highlights Hillary Clinton's weaknesses, and that's real scary to them. I think Marco Rubio is the single scariest candidate out there as far as the Democrats are concerned.
I think he could be very exciting on a campaign trail, don't you, Larry?
Yeah, he not only is comparable to Kennedy, but he has the potential to be a Republican version of Barack Obama 8 years ago. Somebody who gets the momentum going and carries it on through the general election. And that scares the Democrats. That portion was scary to them.
Interesting.
And which candidate would not scare them beside Carly, do you think?
Would not scare them?
Yeah. There's quite a few, I think.
Yeah, and they're not...
Yeah, I mean, the other list is much shorter. They are scared of Jeb Bush. They think he can win. And they really think that he has more potential than Rubio does. mainly because his wife is Hispanic.
Right.
And he can draw that vote significantly.
Exactly.
That can make a difference in New Mexico, and that would be one of the swing states that would be affected there. He's not as dynamic of a campaigner as Rubio is, and so they wouldn't be as scared so much on the other things. But the fact that he's Hispanic, that his wife is Hispanic, really scares them there, and they think he could beat Hillary also. Marco Rubio, you got to remember now, is not Hispanic. He is Latino, and Ted Cruz is also Latino. From a demographic viewpoint, that's not as scary to the Democrats, because the Latinos are going to get the Cuban votes, but the Republicans have been getting the Cuban American votes all along anyway.
Right. Back to Jeb Bush a minute. We didn't talk much about him. We have about 2 minutes left, Larry. Jeb Bush seems to continue to have this awkwardness about him in front of the camera on the platform. He is kind of an aw shucks, boyish mannerism about him that doesn't project a lot of confidence when he has those awkward head tilts. But when he starts speaking and gets on a roll, he gets some traction. But overall, how did he do?
C, maybe C+. He got to get some points across. But he is out of practice as a campaigner. It's been several years since he was governor. And even since then, even though he's been running for president now for a year or more, he's only been running in speaking to small groups of fundraisers and that sort of thing. And he's still very awkward. It's not a major problem for him, and he's probably going to get over it. But he needs to move past that fairly quick. He's much more stiff and awkward than I expected him to be by this point in the campaign.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too, and I think there's plenty of time, like you say. You're prone to say it's still very early, and his advisors and handlers, they're paid to help him practice, and certainly any candidate can overcome that. We've seen candidates in the past; they do fine down the stretch. Mm-hmm. All right, to wrap up, Larry, give us, I think, 4 candidates to keep your eye on, and any surprise there.
Well, it depends on what you mean, keep your eyes on. But if it's a broad criteria, keep your eyes on Trump, because I think he's going to implode over the next month to 6 weeks, and that will affect things dramatically. As he goes down, the candidate who's most likely to benefit is Jeb Bush, because Bush has been given something of a free ride over the last few weeks because the press has been talking totally about Trump, and he's been willing to do that because he's not quite comfortable going into full campaign mode. Can he do that once the attention from on Trump shifts somewhere else? Marco Rubio, I've already mentioned, I think he's going to be one of the final 3 contenders, and that has to be important. And he's the major guy there. Scott Walker is supposed to be a person to keep your eye on. He hasn't convinced me yet, but he's still the leading candidate in Iowa, and as long as he maintains that lead, even though he's not been very dynamic in the debates, he's still a major factor there. And I'd go one more. I'd say John Kasich impressed a lot of people Thursday night, and he may pull up and increase his standing within the party.
Well, Larry, as always, we've got to leave it there, but thank you so much. Great as always, insight superb, and we'll have you back soon. Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
All right, you've been listening to Dr. Larry Powell from UAB. Thank you, Jim King of Hedges and Highways Ministry, Brad Phillips with Homewood Auto Body Specialist, and yours truly, Jeff DeShazer with Keller Williams Realty in Hoover. We'll be back next week. You're listening to American Heritage Live. On behalf of Daniel Connor and Ron Meyer, so long, everybody.